Now call on the Mayor of Wellington.
Member of Parliament, Mayor Guppy, representatives of the Defence Force, the family of Robert Nichol and the Assyrian community. It is a solemn duty which brings us here today, but I am happy and honoured to have this opportunity to pay tribute on behalf of the people of Wellington to a lost son of their city. Unlike others who distinguish themselves in conflict, Robert Nichol is not a household name, but his story of courage, selflessness and sacrifice is one that should be known. Captain Nichol's military record tells us he was a good soldier and a brave man. He wanted to do his duty, which meant defending the Assyrians as they both resisted and fled the advancing forces. But what we remember is something that we cherish more than great feats of arms or brilliant tactics. Robert Nichol died helping people who needed his help in the best and most inspiring traditions of the fighting man. The abiding image of the Anzacs at Gallipoli is Simpson's donkey, showing the evacuation of a wounded soldier. Most recently, we think of Corporal Willie Apiata carrying a dangerously wounded comrade to safety through murderous gunfire. Being a soldier has never been just about fighting or self-preservation, as veterans of conflicts from Afghanistan in 2010 to Gate Power in 1864 would be able to tell us. It wasn't long after the tragedy of the First World War that it became apparent that it wasn't the war to end wars. Despite the sacrifices of so many, peace remains elusive in the Middle East. But that is not to say the sacrifices were in vain. It is estimated that the actions of Robert Nichol and his comrades in protecting the Assyrians as they fled saved as many as 60,000 people. I don't know how to do the sum, but I know that means there may be hundreds of thousands of people alive today who owe their very existence to the bravery of those soldiers a long way from home and a long time ago. That is a magnificent legacy and an answer to everyone who asks the question, was it worth it? Yes, hundreds of thousands of times, yes. I know the campaign to have a memorial to Robert Nichol has been a long one, and I congratulate those who have kept the flame alive. It is particularly appropriate at the start of this week of remembrance to be unveiling a permanent memorial to a man without a known grave, even in some corner of a foreign field. While we can never escape the tragedy that 21-year-old Robert Nichol didn't return to New Zealand to live the life he deserved, I hope his relatives will find satisfaction in knowing that after more than 90 years, he has, in a sense, come home.
We'll now call the MP for Restocking, Mr. Chris Hipkins.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here today. As we stand here today, it's a reminder to all of us that we stand on the shoulders of the generations who come before us. Captain Robert Nichol and the generation that and his generation and the generation that followed after him are in fact giants in the history of humanity for the tremendous sacrifices that they made so that we may enjoy the freedom that we so often take for granted today. Many of you will be familiar with Captain Robert Nichol's story. In July 1918, Captain Nichol and a team of Anzac soldiers banded together to protect a group of Assyrian refugees. Captain Nichol's superiors in the British Army disapproved, but the Anzacs fervently defied the orders from above. Tragically, while guarding the vulnerable refugees in Persia, Captain Nichol and his group came under attack and were killed. While those brave Anzac soldiers lost their lives, 60,000 Assyrian refugees survived World War I. Many of those refugees later settled in Australia and New Zealand, and many of their descendants are here today to remember their brave actions. Undoubtedly, Captain Nichol's story is moving and compelling, It's compelling because it shows the determination of a brave Kiwi and his group of Anzacs to defend and protect their Assyrian friends. Their commitment to the safety of Assyrian refugees was a selfless act of humanity. It wasn't called upon by anybody. Tragically, Captain Nicholl's story is also moving because the selfish actions of the Anzacs led to their sad and seemingly unfair deaths. But in other ways, Captain Nicholl's story seems to be an appropriate one. The band of brothers from Australia and New Zealand came together to protect others in need and to do what they considered to be the right thing to do. Captain Nicholl's story embodies the ethos of mateship, which Kiwis and Aussies still stand by today. And of course, it wouldn't be a tale involving Kiwis and Aussies unless it involved an act of defiance. Captain Nicholl's bold determination to do the right thing against the wishes of his superiors appropriately reflects our tenacious commitment to do things our way and to forge our own identities as New Zealanders and Australians. Captain Nicholl's story seems appropriate today because today's memorial service marks the coming together of New Zealanders and Australians, much like Captain Nicholl's contingent did in 1918, and much like people across Australasia will do next Sunday as we mark Anzac Day. Thankfully, the brave actions of Captain Robert Nicholl will never be forgotten. And can I also offer that solemn promise to Captain Nicholl's family who are here today, that we will always remember his contribution. I want to draw attention to how Captain Nicholl and his contingent of Anzac contributed to the forging of identities of New Zealanders and Australians. For the young countries of Australia and New Zealand, Captain Robert Nicholl helped pioneer our unwavering principles of sticking by our mates and doing what we know to be right. 92 years later, the actions of the Anzacs in Persia and other foreign battlegrounds brings Kiwis and Aussies together as a community in ways that no other events can. And for these reasons, we are eternally grateful to the contribution of Captain Nicholl and his fellows and the contribution they make to our community today long after they have gone. And it is in that spirit that we are here today to remember the memory of Captain Robert Nicholl. Thank you.